top NECA or Super7 Sesame Street figures we want ASAP.
Can you tell me why we don't have these figures yet?
Hey everybody, welcome to SpeekyGeeky. As always, I am Mr. Geek-E. Today, we are going to be imagining and discussing a possible NECA or Super7 collector-style Sesame Street toy line. As we reflect on 2021, well, not like actively reflect, we aren't sadomasochistic, but rather reflect on it from just the standpoint of incredible toys and toy lines that came out that year. It actually was a pretty dang good year. In fact, if you are anything like us, those reveals and that incredible selection was one of the few things to help us keep from going full The Shining while cooped up the full year. Well, we absolutely need to take a beat and stop to appreciate all the incredible offerings the toy world bestowed us with. Silverhawks, Thundercats, multiple iterations of TMNT, including a toy-accurate size Chrome Dome, and a pre-order of Scratch, Gargoyles, Masters of the Universe, Plunderlings, Power Rangers, G.I. Joe, Marvel Legends, Star Wars, Transformers, just to name the very tippy top of the iceberg. But just as glaring to the incredible selection of amazing 80s and 90s nostalgia were the toy lines we haven't seen yet. And oh, how it is burning a hole as an empty space on our shelf when it has the ability to be burning a bigger hole in our wallets. And well, we at SpeekyGeeky thought we'd try and fix that. As we move closer to San Diego Comic-Con 2022, we thought no time better than the present, on the 17th anniversary of its first reveal at Comic-Con, to circle back on an incredibly desired toy line that was snuffed out before it even had a chance to show us just how incredible it could be. We are, of course, talking about the first Fun for All, then Palisades Sesame Street collector's line. This was one that is fairly personal for us, and a line that is utterly shocking to us that we don't have yet. From what information is publicly available, it looked to be an absolutely stunning range of figures, accessories, and diorama pieces. And it seems like if we want something like this made, just like the show itself, it's going to have to rely on commenting, liking, and subscribing from viewers like you, so we can make sure the right eyes and ears hear us loud and clear. Heck, we'd even be willing to put it to song if we thought that would help them to put down the ducky and pick up the action figure line. Before we dive into how we would structure this new proposed line, we thought it might be prudent to give a bit of background on the magical line we almost had from Palisades back in 2005 before they dissolved as a company. It is important to note that we did get one figure from the line, which is now incredibly difficult to obtain, in the form of Super Grover, which was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive and even had Alex Ross painted box art. Yeah, it was freaking gorgeous, if you were one of the lucky few that was able to get your hands on it. That same year, we also got a tease of what the first wave would look like. In the years that have passed since the original reveal, fans heard from the former chief designer of Palisades Toys, Ken Lilly, revealing who else we would have seen in the series all the way up through Wave 5. And holy heck, after hearing and seeing who was on the docket, it just makes us regret not having the line that much more, because they were beautiful. So who are we talking about here, Geeky? Well, the first wave was going to consist of Ernie with Rubber Ducky, Oscar the Grouch, also with a rumored orange variant, and Slimey, Guy Smiley, Two-Headed Monster, and an exclusive bedtime Bert. Wave 2 would have been Bert with Bernice the Pigeon, Elmo, Grover, Count Von Count, Roosevelt Franklin, Yip Yip Martians, an 11-inch Big Bird with Little Bird, with each figure coming with a piece that would build a playset that would be a replica of Sesame Street. The Wave 2 exclusive was going to be Bedtime Ernie. Wave 3 would have been Cookie Monster, Sherlock Hemlock, and the Amazing Mumford, with Waiter Grover as the convention exclusive. It's assumed, but not confirmed, that Mr. Johnson likely would have accompanied him. Wave 4 would have been Telly Monster, Zoe, Prairie Dawn with Betty Lou as a variant, Fat Blue. Nothing more was specified with that one, but we're guessing this would have been a generic release of Mr. Johnson. Mr. Snuffleupagus, and the exclusive was to be Bath Time Ernie. Wave 5 would have been Rosita, Harry Monster, Alice Snuffleupagus, and an exclusive Bath Time Bert. Specific Comic-Con exclusives were to be an Anything Muppet Play Pack, Gladys the Cow, Stepping Out Ernie and Bert, a Honker Dinger 2-pack, and Grungetta. First of all, just to state for the record, we at SpeekyGeeky still want everything that Palisades was set to get out to us. But we would go even further with what our vision for a Sesame Street line might look like. And one big asterisk here is that this isn't to say that what we are proposing wasn't something Palisades may have also been thinking for longer-term goals with the line. Considering how much time and effort they clearly put into this, it wouldn't surprise us one bit, in fact. We could do one of two things. The first option would make this a Henson universe line similar to what World of Nintendo was before it became the Mario Brothers line, that would see each wave consist of not just Sesame Street characters, but also Fraggle Rock, Storyteller, and Salmon Friends for starters. The second approach would also see us going the route of expanding it well past just Sesame Street, but rather one that would include characters from every iteration of the franchise from every corner of the globe. So here, we're talking about Sesame Tree, Furchester Hotel, Sesame Strat, Rehov Sum Sum, Barrio Sesame, just to name only a few. But certainly not stopping there. If we went with this second option, here is how we might organize it. First off, we're talking fully collector-style figures here, highly articulated and coming with a barrage of fun deep dive extras. For the sake of simplicity, we created concept images of what it might look like if it were something akin to World of Nintendo. But make no mistake, we would ultimately like to see these as something along the lines of what Super7 is doing with their Ultimates line, with a little caveat here being that there could also be an added exclusive figure offering only available if pre-ordered by a certain date, as an incentive for those who committed to the line early in order to show that there was a healthy demand and to build confidence in the metrics so the company creating the line could start moving at a faster pace to get these out to us once illustrated that the demand was indeed very much there. Even though we drafted up conceptual images of what this line could look like, our list of possibilities is so long, we'll just go ahead and call this part one of many and plan to reveal more character choices as the year rolls out as part of our Which Figures Do We Want series. We could also expect that the series would grow in scope as it continued. With that in mind, our picks for a Wave 1 breakdown are fairly modest and would consist of 8 figures altogether. 1 retired figure, 2 classic staple figures, 1 modern favorite figure, 2 international figures, 1 variant, and 1 exclusive figure that would be an oversized. Each standard figure may also come with an accompanying, smaller sized, lesser articulated character, a handful of accessories, or both. With such a long history and so many fantastic options, we would attempt to appeal to the modern fans as well as the veteran ones, making it as comprehensive as possible. So we're not just talking classic characters here, we're also thinking how we can bring in concept characters and sneak in first appearance representations wherever possible in logical ways. Retired characters? Absolutely. Reestablishing an appreciation for characters who are no longer a part of the show, but probably should be? Yup, that is 100% factored into this. Human characters like Bob, Maria, Gordon, Mr. Hooper? Yes, we'll eventually have those too. Over the last year, in preparation for this series, we have conducted polls over Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, Twitter, and gathered thousands of your responses, all of which have helped to shape who factored into our decisions for this series. We cannot stress enough, if you want a Sesame Street Classic series made, please share the heck out of this video so that the right folks see what an enormous and dedicated fan base there is for something like this. It certainly wouldn't hurt if you like, subscribe, and comment as well to better the chances of more folks being suggested this video. And yup, we fully realize how shameless that ask may be, but we at SpeekyGeeky already know this series is one that would be incredibly well received because we are those fans who would be buying the heck out of these too. And we want nothing more than to finally see some of our favorite characters on our shelf in a way that we have always wanted them. With that said, this will act as part one of our Which Sesame Street Figures Do We Want series, a line we like to call the Sunny Days Collection. And with that, let's move on down the street to see which articulated neighbors we'll meet. Number 1, Elmo. Yes, we are fully aware that for many, Elmo is the benchmark of a different era of Sesame Street. Many look to the introduction of that character as the physical chapter marker between classic era Sesame Street and modern. So for this first wave, it's only fitting that this easily identifiable and modern favorite be included as the very first modern-facing choice. Though we certainly see other iterations of this character appearing in later waves in some of his other very distinct outfits, we envision this Elmo looking like he just jumped right out of his Elmo's World segment, and with an included Elmo's World backdrop, he can do just that. We also see Elmo coming with his fish Dorothy, his Blinky, and his stuffed animal baby David. It would be a blast to eventually get to see a Mr. Noodle figure down the road too, in any one of his various classic costumes. Number 2, the Amazing Mumford. We've been hoping for decades now that if we just repeated the words, "a la peanut butter sandwich," enough times, this classic favorite character would magically appear before us. And all these years later, we're just saying the phrase a little louder. But our hope is still going strong. We see our favorite, occasionally effective magician coming with a rabbit, a removable top hat that can easily be affixed with a magnet inside his head, a magic wand, 2 sets of hands, one for gripping and one as if saying, "ta-da!" and naturally, a half-eaten peanut butter sandwich. The Amazing Mumford would also come with a background that would give him the appearance of being on stage. Number 3, Telly Monster, our favorite triangle-loving neurotic monster that exuded such a nervous nature that when he was able to be calmed, it managed to put all of us at ease as well. Here's a funny side note about Telly. He originally got the name Telly, which is a nickname for his initial vision of being a television monster, with swirling eyes and metal antenna coming out from his ears like a walking TV. Though this depiction was quickly dropped when it became clear that this wasn't an example they wanted to be setting for children. That said, we haven't forgotten and would absolutely include that additional swirly-eyed alternate head. We would also have him packed in with a monster on the spot microphone, tie, and hat to display as his jittery reporter persona, a giant triangle, a pogo stick, his doll Freddy, and hamster Chucky Sue. And yes, before anyone asks, we 100% would plan to include a Grouch Telly variant, as well as one for his hilariously different depiction in the very first illustrated appearance of the character in Circus of Opposites, both of which would be released as the series would expand. Number 4, Oscar the Grouch. Who better to pair in the same wave as Telly, the trembling water to Oscar's vim and vinegar? Oscar, Sesame Street's resident Grouch, has been there from the start, even if he may have looked a little less green around the edges in his early days. Though we have seen Oscar in many iterations over the years, very seldomly, if ever, have we been able to have a version of him that sees him outside of his trash can. Much like the Palisades version, this figure would have the ability to have his arms easily removed and would have an easily removable lower torso, much like NECA's recent dirtbag figure from the Fred Wolf TMNT line, in order to place Oscar easily onto a peg set to a lever on the back of his trash can, so he can easily be lowered into the can as far as we want to display him. The figure would have 2 heads, one with a trash lid affixed, as well as a detached trash lid head, so folks could allow for it to burst off if they want him to rise out of the can quickly. Oscar would also come with Slimey, his dog Preposterous, an attachable scram sign, a Muppet version of the letter O, and a couple attachable Oscar expression faceplates to show his varying degrees of grouchiness. Number 5, the first appearance Oscar the Grouch. As many longtime Sesame fans probably realize, Oscar hasn't always looked the way we've come to know and love him over the years. In fact, in the first season of the show, Oscar was a completely different color. It's true. Oscar originally started out as an orange Grouch, and in a few iterations of the series around the world, like Moshe Ufnik in Israel's Rehov Sumsum, they've actually kept their primary Grouch character orange in the long term. If we want to get even more technical here, his original concept was even more colorful, envisioning him as purple with a much longer neck that almost had him resembling an angry-looking bird. Though that concept version is firmly on our radar as well, for simplicity's sake, the version we would cast as this wave's variant would be a simple orange first season Oscar. Essentially, all would still be the same here, other than perhaps swapping out Preposterous for an also orange Oscar the Crab from when Abby Cadabby briefly transformed him in episode 4632. Number 6, Googly from Galli Sim Sim. Nope, not the search engine. In fact, if you type Googly into that aforementioned browser, you'll be hard-pressed to even find this lovable unibrowed book-reading Muppet from India's Galli Sim Sim pop up. Why Googly, you ask? Well, besides the fact that he's adorable and would make a fun first venture into the international characters represented in this line, how about the fact that this character just got an additional series based off his likeness for a 2D cartoon called Chomki Ki Dunia? which is one more amazing reason fans of Sesame Street in large might want to know him a little better. We see Googly coming with his good friend Denchoo the donkey, a book, and a backdrop for Galli Galli Simpson. Number 7, Funella Furchester from Furchester Hotel. The sister of Elmo's father, Louis, Funella is the incredibly friendly co-owner of the Furchester Hotel. Basically, if you remember the Furry Arms Hotel from Sesame Street, Funella is the UK version of Sherry Netherland. Aside from having the direct tie to Elmo toward helping to world build, Funella has just such a fun personality and presence that we couldn't not include her. Funella would come with a Furchester Hotel backdrop, the front desk bell Muppet named Isabel that could have the ability to make noise if tapped, and a smaller scale Gonger, who is the hotel chef and also a recurring character now in Sesame Street proper. Number 8, human Jim Henson. We know him, we love him, and without him, there would be no Sesame Street as we know it. What better draw to bring in as an early exclusive than the artist who helped to make this conversation even possible? The humans in this line, by the very nature of their being, well, human, will have to stand taller than the Muppet characters. So, though Jim wouldn't be as tall as the eventual Big Bird, who we'd expect to stick with that 11-inch size, he would certainly be closer to the 7 or 8-inch mark in order to give some noticeable size differentiation when displayed with the Sesame Street character counterparts. We see this as being very early days Jim Henson with a makeshift puppet theater and an extra arm that would also have a first appearance partial body Ernie over it, so we could pose Henson on the floor with his arm up in the stand to create our favorite scenes. Jim would also come with a banjo and a Muppet letter J. Well, there it is. That wraps episode 1 of this Sesame Street Collector's Line, multi-part series of videos. But don't stray too far from the neighborhood, because Mr. Geek-E, hey, that's me, is gearing up to make like a count and bring you part 2 of our first year of what we'd like to see from a Sesame Street Toy Line series. Ah, I love it! We imagine you'll have favorite Sesame Street characters at the top of your list too, so be sure to make your voice heard in the comments below. And if you haven't already, don't forget that
S is for subbing, that's good enough for me. L is for liking, which you all can do for free. S is for sharing, share for everyone to see. Oh, sub and like to SpeekyGeeky.
Also, before you scram on out of here, make sure to check out the description for additional links that lead to some similar expanded content we think fans of the series will probably enjoy quite a bit.
we realize that you could have gone anywhere and you chose to geek out with us, and we appreciate that. So, as always, I am Mr. Geek-E, and until next week's Sesame Street Collector's Line Speaky, keep it geeky, folks.